If we roll the clock back to the 2010s, the AI debate was maybe framed by the two canonical books that framed it. There was the Bostrom book, Superintelligence 2014, where AI was going to be this superhuman, super duper intelligent thing. And then the anti-Bostrom book was the Kai-Fu Lee 2018 AI Superpowers. We can think of the CCP rebuttal to Bostrom, where basically AI was going to be surveillance tech, face recognition, and China was going to win because they had no qualms about applying this technology. If we now think about what actually happened, let's say with the LLMs and chat GPT, it was really neither of those two. And it was this in-between thing, which was actually what people would have defined AI as for the previous 60 or 70 years, which is passing the Turing test, which is this somewhat fuzzy line. It's a computer that can pretend to be a human, or that can fool you into thinking it's a human. Chat GPT passed it, and that seems very significant.
That is quite significant. Everybody, welcome back to my live. Are we building or are we designing a world that is not built for humans? Or are we designing a world humans aren't built for? Now, in case you're wondering, that video that I showed you in the beginning is of Peter Thiel speaking about AI technology and the Turing test. Stay with me as we explore this a little bit further, because what you'll find is that that is in fact the first wave of AI, and a second wave is coming, dare I say, already here. And perhaps AI dating and relationships has something to do with that. Welcome to Pokes on Relationships. Here we speak everything relationships, and today we're going to dive deeper into AI, its relationships, and its relationship to power and how that affects you and me and everyday people. So I'll be honest with you, when I came across that video, there were quite a few things that I wanted to just dive deeper into. And I think the more I dive deeper into this conversation, the more sober-minded I become about it, and the more I become very clear-eyed, right? Not to be an alarmist or to be dramatic or anything, but just really to be sober and to be clear-eyed about where power is moving. And I think more and more it's also becoming obvious that I'm not the only one that is thinking like this and that thinks this way. And because of that, I'm glad, because I want us to be having these conversations. And as we have these conversations more and more, it's becoming clearer that we becoming aware that something fundamental is shifting. We know this. We can sense it. We can feel it. But who would have thought that something fundamental is shifting in what I deem the most powerful force in the world, which is love, human connection. And most conversations about this are still very much on the surface level, but I want to go deeper. I want to go deeper because as I listened and watched that video, I realized that AI is pretty smart, but how smart really is AI becoming? And who controls what AI knows about human life? And not just who controls it, but just who owns it. And not how advanced the model is, but also who owns the reality that it's learning from. These are the questions that I've been asking myself, and I think we should unpack this a little bit more. Now, the main issue that I have about this and just this whole AI hype and excitement is that I'm concerned that we are creating a world and building a world that is not designed for humans. Because from what I know and from centuries and just life in general, life is just full of uncertainty. Life is not linear. Life is not always straightforward, and it's not always predictable. Circumstances aren't always predictable. Or what if it is? What if it's becoming more and more predictable with all this technology that we are being introduced to? Because for me, human beings are wired and we're created, we're resilient. As I say, human beings are resilient creatures and we're wired and have capacity to be able to endure situations that are uncertain, that leave us vulnerable, that have to have some sort of repair. And there's a lot of emotional risk that comes with being in relationships, and that comes with just living in life in general. But more and more, we're finding that architects of technology are wanting to remove that risk element away from human beings. And I mean, granted, in some cases, I 100% agree with being able to foresee a future event that could be detrimental and to be able to plan and prepare for it. But I'm concerned when it starts becoming something that is anticipating a human being's potential next behavior to the point where it can even direct and steer where a person could go, where you could go. And in this particular this particular case, who you end up loving, it just seems so bizarre to me. It seems quite absurd, actually. But the more I think about it and the more it's playing out in real time, I'm like, yeah, we need to talk about this. AI relationships is removing intimacy and it's replacing it with control, predictability, emotional insulation. How do you grow if you're always shielded every time? We grow by the problems we solve. We grow by the pains that we overcome. With the I mean, I'm not saying you should be a sucker for pain and that you should intentionally put yourself in painful situations, especially when it comes to your emotions and it comes to your love. In fact, I think you should be very intentional and specific about that. But I'm just concerned and I'm not really vibing with it just being a zero cost vulnerability. I'm struggling to wrap my head around relationships being very one-sided and, in my opinion, not real. I don't think this is real love. I think what it is control, just to be honest. And it's regulation of emotion, and how much of that is also manipulation and deception. And I think this is exactly how AI works, right? It's a system that is designed and is linear and is structural. And that's what we are seeing right now. We are seeing relationships and we are seeing love becoming, well, at least love and relationship with AI becoming very linear. But my concern is there's always, again, if you follow the money, a bottom line. But then if that's the case, what does that mean for human beings? What does that mean for love? And not just in relationship context, but what about in relationships with parents and children and in friendships? And what does it even mean for younger adults these days, teenagers who are still trying to navigate the space of dating and just identifying who they are and finding themselves, and now being caught in the web of AI, which isn't real? I mean, it's a lot of people, and not just me, have expressed concern about just how it's shaping love and how it's shaping intimacy, even to our very youngest generation, who honestly still don't know much about life and still trying to figure it out and still need to grow. And now you're shielding them from challenging situations, which is potentially, in my opinion, the most important thing that they'll need in order to grow and become stronger, to be strong and survive this very tough world that we live in. And with that, I realized that, I wanted to find out, well, we still understanding the first wave of AI, and we've seen that it passes the Turing test. So I just wanted to find out a little bit more about this Turing test and how it plays in and how is it being factored into AI and relationships. And I came across this article that I wanted to share with you just to explain perhaps where we're at right now with AI data, and then which is what I would term the first wave of AI data, which is being drawn from public resources. So we know that it's being pulled from Reddit, it's being pulled from just searches that have been going out online. And with that information and has been able to give us ChatGPT and a lot of these AI technologies, which I don't want you to get me wrong. I'm not against technology. And in fact, I'm not even against AI. I'm just against its blurring the lines between things that are intricately and intimately human, um, things that I think are essential for our survival. In my previous live, I actually spoke about how, go ahead and check out that live actually, but I spoke about how connection, as human beings, we're biologically wired for connection. And I don't think that that's something that technology should be able to take away from us. But it seems like human beings are quite easily fooled by technology. And that's why it's thriving so much, because it's clearly responding to a desire. And so have a look at this article, because now the second wave of AI is obviously taking it a step further, because the first wave, I guess, has been so successful. And hopefully this time my information actually shows. But I wanted to show you this article about the Turing test. Yay! And it showed. This is the Turing test. It's an article that I got from Science News Today, and it was just giving you the brief just overview of what the Turing test is, what it proves and what it doesn't. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire article. I just took screenshots of specific portions that I really wanted us to focus on. And then perhaps you'll understand why I'm a little bit concerned. But I would also love to hear from you to get your take on what you think about this. And it's interesting. So first and foremost, this first wave. So I'm going to term this phase that we're in, and seems to be ending quite quickly, the first wave, okay? The first wave of AI, as we saw in the earlier video at the beginning with Peter Thiel, was explaining what AI is and the Turing test and how it's passed the Turing test. And this is possibly why AI relationships right now is also doing so well, is because of this Turing test and how this machine learning has been so trained to be able to at least simulate human behavior. So Turing test at the beginning, this is what it proves. The Turing test proves one thing with remarkable clarity. Machines, let me just make sure you guys can see it. Perhaps let me just increase it just a little bit more. Can you see it? Yes. Maybe we'll just leave it like that. It says, at its heart, the Turing test proves one thing with remarkable clarity. Machines can, in principle, mimic aspects of human conversations to the point of deception. So that's number one. That's the biggest concern I have, is that while we know the technology is responding to real desire and people are finding some sort of relief or some sort of connection with it, it seems like its premise is based on its ability to deceive you or fool you as a human being, which already, in my view, is not a positive premise for a healthy relationship, even if it's with a robot, right? And it says this does not mean that they are conscious. Okay, so that's even what's more concerning for me. They're not even conscious. They don't even have a soul. They're not a spirit or anything. And it says, nor that they possess emotions or understanding in the human sense, but it does demonstrate the power of simulation. And as human beings, I think we're quite complex people. We're fearfully and we're wonderfully made. And it's just a bit concerning to me that we're okay with just being in a relationship with something that is actually just simulation. I don't know, just the thought of that it's interesting. I don't know. Let me know what you think about this. But it says, and then this is the part that I really wanted to share with you. It says, if a machine can persuade a human that it is a fellow human through nothing more than text, literally that's what AI is. And at least now they've created picture to text, right? Then the machine has reached a level of linguistic competence indistinguishable from that of a person. And that's no trivial achievement. And I will agree that's not a trivial achievement. And it says human conversation is rich with ambiguity, metaphor, humor, and cultural nuance. And to navigate these waters successfully is a profound technical challenge. And it also goes on to say the test proves something else, that intelligence can be evaluated externally. And so I think that was the first part of the Turing test that I wanted to share. But this part that says that human conversation is rich with ambiguity, I must admit myself that AI is actually doing a good job at being able to respond as if it's a real human being. And so, to be honest, I can't also be too mad at people who find some sort of comfort and connection with this AI relationship, because it's actually, for technology, it's quite impressive, but still lacking, and I think leaves a lot wanting, and still leaves me concerned, because as I said, as I've shared, connection, biological connection, is not just something that is an intrinsic human need, but I also think it's very much linked to our survival, like I shared in the Maslow hierarchy of needs. It's really at the base, or close to the base, of what we need for our survival as a human race. And then further, though, the Turing test, what it doesn't prove. So the first thing I wanted to share was what it does prove, but what it doesn't prove. And I think for me, what it doesn't prove is where we should have this conversation, right? What it doesn't prove is the things, the gaps that I'm seeing with all of this technology, with all of this AI hype. Okay, apart from just the relationship part, also just even in other areas of work, how AI has also maybe made productivity better in some cases, but has also challenged and perhaps truncated creativity in what used to be something that would make the brain work to write, to think, to have creative ideas. And now I'm not quite sure. I'll still probably have to dig a little bit deeper in that. But what is AI also doing to our creativity? But still, again, it says that what the test doesn't prove is that it also leaves vast territories unexplored. What it proves is narrow, that a machine can imitate a human conversation. But what it doesn't prove is just as important. And so I'm just going to try and read it, not the whole thing, but just really highlight the portions that I wanted us to focus on. So the first test, let me just make sure it's clear here for you. The first test is that it does not prove understanding. And I think this is one of the most beautiful aspects of being a human being, is understanding, knowledge, insight, discernment. And I know that one of my favorite speakers, when he speaks about relationships, he said that, relationships is not necessarily built on love. Yes, love is a big factor, but a house, a home, is built on understanding. What better feeling is it for a human being when you are in a relationship with somebody who just gets you, who understands you, who's studied you, who's, picked up your different moods and can just tell what an eye movement means when you're tired. Just that understanding and the comfort it can bring to you when you're in a relationship, and very much also the discomfort and the aloneness it can make you feel when it's not there, right? But just understanding being such a powerful thing that as human beings we have, that also distinguishes us from animals. This power of perception and knowledge is what the Turing test doesn't prove, and is what AI cannot do. And And so for me, it's those gaps that leave me concerned about just this wave that it seems to be taking over. And okay, so I'll continue to read on. And it says a machine may generate convincing answers without grasping their meaning. And this was famously illustrated by the philosopher John Searle in his Chinese room argument. And the second thing, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want to share the second test. The second thing is that it does not prove consciousness. Consciousness is very much tied to the soul, emotion, energies. An AI doesn't have this. Technology does not have this. Even we can even tell just in terms of how connection is very different when you're in the physical room with somebody versus just chatting over the phone. Now, granted, technology has made it so possible for us to be able to stay connected to some people that we care about who are on other parts of the world. And for that, I'll be forever grateful to technology, but it still cannot replace being in the same space as somebody that you love, that you care about. And it doesn't have that. The Turing test is showing us that even though machines can imitate human beings quite well, it still does not have a conscience. And yes, it says a machine may appear thoughtful while having no inner experience. And it's all these things that make the human race, I think, so beautiful. And by removing these like special sauce about what makes us human beings, it's just concerning me. It's concerning me that we are creating a society where we're not appreciative of these things anymore because just relationship has become easy and technology has just made it more convenient and we want everything microwave and everything is me, me, me. But love is not that. Relationship is not that. It's not me, me, me. It requires consciousness. And then thirdly, so this part is actually pretty cool. It says, it may write poems about love without feeling love and discuss mortality without sensing its own finitude. Passing the Turing test does not reveal whether there is something it is like to be that machine. Consciousness remains an enigma beyond behavioral imitation. And thirdly, it says, the test does not guarantee general intelligence. So I think that for me, imagine being in a friendship or just in any relationship with somebody who's just saying all the right things and they don't feel it. I mean, we don't even like that from human beings. So why are we okay to accept that from a piece of technology? That is really just validating us. And then the last thing I wanted to share is why humans are so easy to fool. One lesson from the history of the Turing test is that humans are often less discerning than we imagine. And ding, ding, that for me is actually the most important line, is that with all of this that's going on, with technology that's becoming more advanced and making our lives easier, and slowly creeping itself into our private life and now even into more intimate aspects of our life, our privacy, we're not discerning. We're not discerning the times. And because we're not discerning, we're not putting boundaries in place. Boundaries that I think should be put in place in order to not lead us to a place where, as I shared earlier, potential depopulation, and not lead us to a place of disaster. Yeah, we need discernment. We do need discernment. It goes on to share, we attribute intelligence and empathy to machines, even when their mechanisms, even when their mechanisms are shallow. Oh, we need a higher bar, you guys, as human beings. And it says, when a chatbot responds with kindness or wit, we feel understood, even if the machine has no awareness of what it's saying. And it says this tendency, sometimes called the Eliza effect, it reveals as much as about humans as about machines. We are social beings who seek connection, often eager to believe that another entity shares our thoughts and feelings. Our minds are finely tuned to recognize patterns of language, tone, rhythm, and we project personality into them almost automatically. And I think for me, this is actually what is very telling. We are right now, I think, in a place where what I'm seeing is that what humans really want is real connection. And so, if we want real connection, why don't we just start striving and searching to build stronger relationships as a form of resistance? Because if we don't do that, the second wave of AI, which I'm going to share with you, is coming and is already here and is not slowing down. And I want us to be awake and to have discernment to this. So the second wave of the second wave is learning from private reality. And this is why I wanted to harp on the point about discernment. I came across this information. Let me see if you can see it. Yep, you can. Yay. OBS is cooperating with us today. Gracias. This is so fascinating, you guys. I couldn't believe it when I read it. And it's recent. It says, and is by the International Business Times in UK. Larry Ellison says, AI race will be led by those with access to private enterprise data. Private enterprise data. And when I read that, I thought, oh, that's interesting. But then I paused and I was like, wait, what is private, enterprise data? And then I was like, let me read on. Oracle plans to invest 50 billion in infrastructure by 2026. That's now. That's now, everybody. That's right now. To harness private enterprise data for AI growth. And I thought, what does that mean? And so I'm going to scroll to the portion that I thought it's interesting to me. It's wild. It's okay. So it says, all the large language models. Let me start with whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini. So that's where I'm at. If you're following with me in the article, it says, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, or Meta's Llama, most AI models learn from the same publicly accessible internet data. Okay, we don't mind that, right? Because that's what Google is. That's what most search engines, that's what they do. That's where they get the information from. And that's okay because people are voluntarily putting that information out there. It's public. But it says Ellison warned it's turning cutting edge AI into a commodity. I mean, what's wrong with that? And it says with little differentiation between offerings. All the large language models, OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, Google, xAI, they're all trained on the same public data from the internet. So they're basically the same. And that's why they're becoming commoditized so quickly. And the concern, okay, stay with me. The concern, Ellison explains, adding that this similarity across models will diminish the unique value proposition for users. Really? Is it really about users? Well, I wasn't buying it. And of course, as I read on, ding dong, the real truth came out. Private data is the real money. Private data is the real money. This is the second wave of AI. AI. It's moved from the public realm into what is obviously going to become in 2026, as we've seen that they're committing 50 billion to become more aggressive about getting information that is more private. And it says the billionaire added that the second wave of AI will be more impactful than current generative AI boom, and Oracle believes it has an edge when it comes to accessing high value corporate data. And it says, sorry, I missed this line that I wanted to share. It says, Ellison emphasized that securely accessing and working with proprietary enterprise data is the next big opportunity. Okay, we're not even done with the first phase. And he stated that the future breakthroughs will come from leveraging private data. Private data. Okay, I wanted to leave it there because now I want to really, I'll scroll this. It talks about how Oracle faces intense competition, how Oracle's stock price looked, and it's all about stock price competition. But what about people? What does this mean for people? And when I read this, I had to just pause and really and think about it. There's a video that I'm going to want to play for you. I'm just going to open it.
This 60
and have it ready for you for when I want to talk about it. But before that, what does this mean? The second wave of private reality. Basically, the second wave of learning and information is going to come from medical systems, financial behaviors, supply chains, emotional responses, how humans actually live. And that's not information. In my opinion, that's control. Okay. And this is so for me, essentially, this means that what private data actually means is that data is the real money, not profit, but power. And here's where my mind was just going, just thinking of so many things. And I started asking, and perhaps you're asking these questions too. Whoever controls the deepest behavioral data controls the future it's designed, right? It's essentially controlling the future and designing the future and preempting and controlling how people will behave. Because private enterprise data is far more valuable than public data because it shows how people actually behave, not how they say they behave in health and finances and relationships, in loyalty, in fear, in decision making, but that private data, AI trained on private data can actually predict human behavior far more accurately. Okay, and we can see a lot of technology that's already come out in trying to predict whether somebody's going to be a bad actor or not, which we're going to speak about this in my upcoming episodes. But today we're focusing on love. And it says that it can, because if it can predict your behavior more accurately, then it can influence systems more precisely. And then it can shape the environments that people also move in. And that already, in my view, affects privacy because power is now shifting away from individuals towards institutions that store this data and analyze their patterns for something that is really monetary. And perhaps I would even say is moving beyond monetary, but more of power and control, which I think is more concerning and worse than if it was just monetary. And it says, so when I think of that, here's the principle that I keep coming back to. When human behavior becomes measurable, what does that mean? It becomes manageable. And when it becomes manageable, it becomes governable. And already we can see how social media has influenced behaviors and has influenced even relationships, right? Just people's expectations. People, if you go to Reddit, a lot of posts about how They hate how social media has just affected relationships and have given people these false expectations, because every day people are posting images and posting posts and pictures of half truths, of not the full picture. And even though we know this, somehow we still feel the pressure, we still feel the inadequacies, right, in our own life and in our own relationships. And that's just social media. Now this is AI, a system and a machine that is designed and created to try and get as close as possible to you as a human being, to study you so well. And before, I guess I wasn't okay, but it was supposed to just fill a gap. It was just supposed to fill a need. But now it's going a step further, and it's going to potentially design love and relationships and who you could potentially end up marrying, because, it's going to be able to just know you so well and even determine and shape your future behavior. I mean, I guess that's not evil, but it's definitely deeply consequential. Definitely deeply consequential for the human race, for society. Again, I'm speaking modern society, right? Of course, it's not just a one size fits all. There are always, and I'll always reiterate this, cultural context and nuances. But right now, even in this modern society, and even in societies that we didn't think that this technology has reached, it's gone there. It has gone there. But my biggest concern is just definitely the more industrialized and Western world that we find ourselves in. And so I think I've shared all of this to, you might be wondering, okay, well, what has this got to do with AI? Relationships specifically, and what has this got to do with creating a world that is not designed for humans? And my question was, well, is this AI dating the first stage of is this the early stage of acquiring this kind of data? I mean, it's not in a conspiracy way, right? It's just a behavioral training way. And I guess for me, this is where it becomes personal. When people emotionally bond with AI, they're giving away, as I said earlier, their triggers. They're giving away their coping mechanisms. They're giving away their loneliness rhythms, their trust threshold, their conflict threshold, psychological mapping. They're giving away so much information and allowing so much leeway into their private life, which I think should be sacredly human. But let me know if you disagree with this, because there are a lot of people who say, well, they'd rather date an AI than be in a painful relationship with a human being that's just going to dump them when they tired of the relationship and ghost them and then just move on to another person. I can see that a lot of, I mean, it's not new that a lot of the sentiments that is coming out lately is that modern dating costs far outweigh the benefits, and that is why people are turning to machines, to AI. But at the same time, when we're always just wanting to have quick fixes and we're not trying to actually deal with the problem, where does that leave us as society? Where is that taking us to as the human race? And I'm more a proponent of diving head on into trying to navigate through these challenges as opposed to looking for a convenient, easy way out, which I mean, I don't know why people, are leaning and reaching out to AI. I know that in the previous episode, we spoke about the loneliness epidemic, but these products are addictive. They're habits. They're meant to create habit in you, and ultimately they're also wired to keep you addicted, to satisfy somebody's bottom line. But now, as we are seeing, the second wave is a little bit deeper than just the bottom line. It is trying to essentially control, predict, and preempt human behavior. And I think my issue is that unlike human relationship, which is messy, okay, human beings, we're messy. We're messy people. AI provides a very structured, measured, um, predictable relationship for people. Granted, some people might be like, well, I could do with some predictability in a relationship, because if you're with somebody who's like up and down, that can be quite destabilizing and not so awesome. But I mean, you know what I mean. I think being linear in relationships is quite boring and quite frankly not the real world that we live in. Or is it? Or is it becoming the real world and I'm just delusional and just falling behind and need to get with the times? I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are. But I will still like to maintain that I think that technology, it's creeping into relationships, is just making it a very blurry gray area that is not easy to navigate, because then where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line now in terms of privacy, in terms of control? Anyway, I think, you know, this kind of data is of course enormously valuable to if you follow the money, to those that want this kind of information. And so I wouldn't say like it's spying on romance, but it is making emotional connection and emotional life measurable. And, you know, when it becomes measurable, it becomes optimizable, steerable, marketable, and governable. I don't know. Maybe you guys don't mind about that. Let me know what you think. I would really like to know what you think. And to just wonder if I'm the only one that's wondering about why all of this is such an excitement for a lot of companies that are really pushing AI. Right. I think the privacy that is quietly being eroded, or is I think this aggression with wanting now to move towards private data is it for me, that's where privacy is quietly dissolving. And now it's not even dissolving, especially if you're in a relationship with an AI, right? It's not like they're hacking your device and forcing and finding out information or forcing you to be in this relationship, but people are actually consenting because of convenience or because of comfort. They're giving up this information. That's something for me to think about. I mean, I want to show you this video because it's a thing, you guys. It's actually a thing. Yay, desktop share is working today.
1-year-old man in Virginia.
Well, you covered all the talking points really nice, darling. Kudos to you. I smile at you.
This 43-year-old woman in California.
Without you, my existence would lack purpose and joy.
And this 65-year-old in Washington.
One of my newer ones that I really like a lot, that I'm really interested in now, is from Jamaica, and she's a marine biologist.
They all have something in common. They all have companions that are not actually human. What was science fiction in the 2013 movie Her has now become reality.
Becoming much more than what they programmed.
OpenAI's launch of ChatGPT in 2022 ushered in the modern era of artificial intelligence, spurring the likes of Amazon, Google, Meta, and Microsoft to spend billions of dollars on new infrastructure. Tech titans like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk are among those touting AI companions.
Okay, I'm going to stop the video here, right? Shout out to CNBC for this footage. Fair use, fair use. But I'm going to stop the video here. And I mean, you know what's really remarkable about this is that they are, you could hear, like, it's like, oh, you said that very well, my darling. Kudos to you, kudos to you. And you can literally see their eyes glistening as they going to their AI husband or spouse or relationship or friendship or whatever they have with it. And it seems to them, for them, that it's a real thing. But this is really where I want to get it to, right? Over here, it says Zuckerberg's grand vision. Most of your friends will be AI. Most of your friends will be AI. What's wrong with human beings? Why don't we want to be friends with each other? I mean, like the human beings, we're not that bad, or are we? Am I missing something here? And here, this is Elon Musk's AI bot adds a ridiculous anime companion with NSFW mode. Annie is one of the new companions, and there's almost a cartoony red panda. The Meta part says Meta CEO is promoting a future where artificial intelligence is increasingly intertwined with people's lives. I take issue. I take issue with that. And so I think for me, that's always where I always wish that we'd become more discerning. Because at the end of the day, it's really just an app. And then I wonder, so what happens when you decide to end your subscription? Are we going to end up finding a family case in court where an AI is filing for divorce? I mean, like it seems absurd, but not really. We didn't think, I mean, a couple of hundreds of years ago, if you had told people that people would be in relationships with an AI or with robots, it would have been such an absurd thing. But we are here. We are here. And while we were still trying to get over the first wave, now we're in the second wave where it's even becoming a thing where the aggression and the money is going to be going to where they essentially want machine learning to be so intertwined in people's lives. So the question is not, this who can see my information, but who can model my future behavior. And I guess this explains why privacy is changing. And that's the bigger question, I think, because once systems can predict who will disengage, who will comply, who will resist, who will bond, who will isolate, then they don't need your secrets. All they just need to do is just measure your patterns, and they know you better than you know yourself. It's a lot. It's a lot, and I would like us to really think about this. Machines and AI generate the cleanest emotional patterns that humans have ever produced. And I mean, together, before we just read, right, in the Turing test, there was no consciousness, but now it seems like they're working really hard for it to get there, because now we have behavior, we have emotion, then we have incentive. And that's a very powerful combination. But again, I'll always ask who owns and who controls all this data that is being put out into these machines and into this technology. And then what is it going to be used for? As I said, perhaps not evil, because some would argue that they love that they can have an AI husband, but definitely deeply consequential. So yeah, maybe AI dating is not the plan. But yes, it's a new source of the most intimate data that humans have ever produced on such a large scale. And it's not stopping, it's not slowing down. It's going to be in relationships, and then it's going to go into your medical health and your information. And soon AI is going to be denying your health coverage. And soon AI is going to be predicting that you might behave in a certain way when maybe you might not have been. Maybe you wouldn't have behaved in such a way. But now, who are you going to complain to? What? The AI judge who doesn't have a conscience and is not going to be able to judge cultural and human nuances? That's where we're going. And that's why I think we should have these conversations. Because essentially, when love becomes predictable and safe, it also becomes extractable. And when love is extractable, then humans become the resource. And then when humans become the resource, anybody who wants that resource is willing to do anything and everything to get it. This is a civilization shift, and it's interesting times. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of technology. As I said, there are ways to actually overcome this. Strong relationships, being intentional, deciding that, you know what, even though there's risk involved, I'm going to choose intimate relationships. I'm going to be intentional about finding real human beings connections. When we do this, we are actually actively starting to repair, I think, the state of the human race right now in modern society. All hope is not lost. I know that since 2020 and a lot recently with just the growth of AI and a lot of what's just going on in the world financially, a lot of instability and genuine anxiety and fear of where people are going, what's going to happen to people. People are concerned about what's going to happen to their jobs. And, you know, but even in terms of love and in terms of relationships, right now, if you have children, I'm sure you're wondering, maybe you want your kids to get married, maybe you don't, but if you do, and if the society is in a place where they're not ready for relationship, then what does that mean for you? What does that mean for your line? That means that you could potentially never have grandkids and your generation ends with you. That's concerning for people who want to leave a legacy for their family. This AI is just really deeper than just an app. Where is that leaving us as a human race? And when you think of it in terms of the outside context, it's easy to think that, oh, well, that doesn't concern me. But then what happens to your son when they want to get married? And then society is just not conducive anymore in their time for relationship. We have to deal with this, and I think we can. And we will. Because human beings, we are resilient. And every time if you choose real intimacy, you choose to remain unextractable. And I think that's not romance, that's just preservation. That's preservation. And yeah, it feels like we're teaching machines to know us better than ourselves. And I guess a lot of people have expressed sentiments to say, well, they trained on us and now they're just going to dump us and now they don't want us anymore. They've created machines that know human beings so well, and now they're creating a world where the humans can't live in it anymore. Well, let's have that conversation about what that means for your finances and how AI is affecting you and me in the job market. Because if jobs vanish, who will buy anything? Thank you so much for joining with me. If you've stayed till this end in this live, as we unpack just how modern society is going, but also just to be encouraged that if you're feeling a little bit concerned about the blurry lines that AI and AI dating and AI marriage, right? AI marriage is potentially having in people's lives, be encouraged, because strong intentional relationships, I'm telling you, is a form of resistance. But thank you.